Well, the real story outside, of course, is where the trees toppled in the early morning hours. And our Cierra Johnson is in East Columbus, where people have a lot of work to do. Hi, Cierra.
Hi, Mike. Yeah, this yard really represents what a lot of people woke up to this morning. You can see entire trees are uprooted, a bunch of branches, many of them split. And if you actually look down the road, you can see a row of AEP trucks. They've been out here all day really helping to repair some of those down power lines that were knocked down by some of these heavier trees. And even further down the road are a bunch of tree removal services. We've been out here all afternoon and we've seen them walking up and down the road, really working to help these folks get it back on task. And really, this is just the beginning of what could be a long cleanup.
I've been seeing total destruction and damage, huge trees ripped apart, split in two, branches down, fences blown apart.
The east side of Columbus cleaning up after what the National Weather Service confirms as a tornado touched down south of Broad Street and east of James Road.
Just unbelievable. From where I live just 2 blocks away from here, I got no damage at all, and over here's a disaster area.
House after house after house here on South Ashburton Road experienced some sort of damage. Gutters were ripped off of homes and trees were ripped up from the root and tossed onto cars.
I actually found my neighbor's tent in the backyard. It was more of a canopy, a 10 by 10, about 10 feet high, and it was broken.
As neighbors survey the damage, AEP works to restore power. Many still in awe that a tornado ripped through their Central Ohio neighborhood.
I've seen it flooded a few times when the streets backed up in rain, but never this. This looks like a total disaster area.
And I can tell you there is some good news since we got out here about noon. Most of this area has been cleaned up. We did speak to this gentleman earlier. These trees had actually fallen on top of his car. He was very upset. He said it was an older tree, but he was still surprised to come out and see his SUV covered by that tree. We'll have more from him tonight at 6. We're live on the city's east side. Cierra Johnson, 10 TV News.
Our Doppler 10 weather team was the first to let you know about the confirmed twister. But we start with Cierra Johnson. She spent the day talking with neighbors who are cleaning up quite a big mess. Cierra?
Yes, so at 5 o'clock, we showed you the damage that was done by some of those downed lines. You can see those branches in that yard, but we actually want to take you to this home. Now, we were at this home at about noon, and at that time, there was an SUV that was here covered by a tree. One of those branches actually went inside of the home. You can see the hole here. They said they could see the branch inside of their living room. If we keep walking, we can see some of the gutter was damaged. And further here, I don't want to go too far because there are some downed lines. But one of those bigger trees destroyed their garage. You can see the roof is gone, the side is knocked over. All of this as a result of those strong winds. Now, take a look at some of that video we did shoot earlier. We spent the afternoon roaming the east side of Columbus, and we could see damage throughout that part of town. There were trees uprooted by its root, and many folks that we spoke to said they're out surveying that damage and working to clean it up. Others were also on the phone with their insurance provider, and there were many tree removal services out handling some of those bigger jobs that folks just could not do on their own.
There were these 2 trees, and there was a huge tree over there that fell. So that's when I had to start calling around insurance companies and stuff.
And that homeowner we spoke to says he doesn't know when he's expected to get his power back on. As you can see, that tree did take down some of those lines. I did overhear the folks across the street. There was a big gasp of excitement because their power did come back on. So it's kind of a mixed bag over here on Ashburton, with some folks working to restore power and others, thankfully, their power is coming back on. We're live on the city's east side. Cierra Johnson, 10 TV News.
All right, thank you, Cierra.
And as storms moved through central Ohio this morning, they caused power outages, power pole and tree damage, especially near Bexley. 10 TV's Cierra Johnson is in East Columbus with more on the damage that scientists from the National Weather Service will be out to survey later this afternoon. Cierra?
Yes, good afternoon, Tracy. Right now I'm at the intersection of Eastmore and Elburn Avenue, and you can see that wind really did some damage for this homeowner. I'm about 5'10", just to give you an idea of just how wide this tree is. It fell about 20 feet away from the home. Thankfully, the home is safe, but it did knock down partially a tree to my left, and this scene played out throughout East Columbus, and it's hard to believe the cleanup is just getting started. It came out of nowhere.
We heard a lot of wind.
And it left behind a mess. A quick but strong storm pushed its way through East Columbus, knocking down trees, knocking down power poles, and catching people who live here by surprise.
A lot of the tree limbs coming down. We lost some shingles we saw flying off of our roof.
Police were scrambling this morning trying to keep up with all of the damage from a burst of wind that lasted only seconds. By daylight, the damage was starting to reveal itself. Not only did the wind knock down trees and poles, but the line of destruction also knocked out power to about 1,000 people. Doug McFinley was right in the middle of all of it when the storm came in.
And then all of a sudden, it started picking up a little harder.
He said suddenly he could see the winds shift.
It picked up fast and I can react where my car started rocking.
Now it's a matter of trying to clean up from a storm no one thought would be this strong.
10 TV News at 11 begins with breaking news in the Columbus City School District. The board has selected Dr. Talisa Dixon as their choice for the next superintendent of the state's largest school district. And while she is still one step away from officially getting the job, it appears the search that has taken an entire year is over. Thanks for joining us tonight, everyone. I'm Yolanda Harris.
I'm Jerry Revish. Dr. Dixon was part of a pool of candidates narrowed down from a nationwide search. 10 TV's Cierra Johnson is live at the Columbus City School Board headquarters on East State Street downtown, where that announcement came down about 90 minutes ago. Cierra?
Yes, good evening, Jerry and Yolanda. After about 3 hours in executive session, members of the Columbus City School Board did make a decision, and it's someone familiar with the Columbus City School District. Dr. Talisa Dixon has been selected as the new superintendent for the state's largest district. Now, Dixon served as superintendent in the Cleveland Heights, University Heights district for about 5 years and served as a principal at a high school level within Columbus City Schools. Board President Gary Baker said Dr. Dixon was a good fit for the district, and she received positive feedback from the community at those meetings that you're looking at now. He says board members believe she is prepared to make changes to lead the district in the right direction.
Dr. Dixon is an incredibly talented educational leader, and we're excited about the opportunity to have someone like her here in our district.
And Gary Baker called the superintendent search, quote, very successful. He said he is very pleased with the outcome and everything did go as planned. Now, a start date for Dr. Dixon has not yet been decided. She still needs to undergo that background check and she still needs to complete the contract negotiations. We're live in downtown Columbus. Cierra Johnson, 10 TV News.
But despite the warnings, there are still people waiting it out. Cierra Johnson spoke to one of those people about this decision to stay. Cierra.
Yes, Jerry and Yolanda, this is Craig Poocher. He's originally from Central Ohio, but he now lives in Wilmington, North Carolina. And he says he's made that tough decision to ride out the storm. Now, I spoke to him through FaceTime, and he said things in his neck of the woods are calm now. There hasn't really been any rain or heavy waves. The only indication that anything is wrong are that businesses are closed. He said most of the grocery stores are cleared out and shut down. Craig says he is prepared. He has enough fuel, water, and food to last about 2 weeks. But he told me his biggest concern isn't the wind or wind damage, it's the possibility of flooding.
I know quite a bit of people that are staying, and I also know quite a bit of people that are leaving. I totally think leaving would be a good idea as well. But I'm just going to batten down the hatches and take what they give me.
And Craig says he has considered leaving. He says evacuations are not mandatory in his area, but in neighboring beach and surge areas. Jerry?
Thanks, Cierra.
For decades, Habitat for Humanity has worked to help rebuild lives and communities here in Central Ohio. But like many nonprofits, the salaries of those behind the scenes trail those working in other industries.
It's no secret that many times folks working in nonprofits aren't making as much as folks that are out in the private sector.
Habitat Mid-Ohio President and CEO E.J. Thomas says the decision to work at a nonprofit is a matter of the heart, and a local university is looking to reward those working for the good of others.
This decision comes from a couple of years of conversation about how to truly walk the walk of our deep commitment to community.
Capital University President Dr. Elizabeth Paul is calling it the Good Guarantee, a tuition break of 50% for families in mission-centered fields. The president at Capital University says this isn't something that was just rolled out overnight. She says a team spent more than 2 years researching labor trends both at the state and local level to create the Good Guarantee program. And this program is for those in the public and nonprofit sector, their spouses, and also their children. That includes those in law enforcement, church and faith-based organizations, nonprofit healthcare agencies, those in the military, and our teachers. President Paul says their research revealed about 20% of incomes in Ohio would qualify for the tuition break that starts with the class entering in 2019.
I feel very proud of Capital University for believing so deeply in our mission and for being willing to step forward in a bold way.
In Columbus, Cierra Johnson, 10 TV News.
Now, some people have decided to just stay and ride out the storm. 10 TV's Cierra Johnson spoke with one of those people.
Yes, his name is Craig Poocher, and he says he's confident in his decision to ride out the storm. He's hoping the fact that his home is on higher ground will help keep him and his home safe. Now, Craig is originally from Central Ohio and moved to Wilmington, North Carolina about 15 years ago. He says he's ready to ride out the storm and was able to stock up on some of those storm essentials: water, gasoline, food, and cash. He says right now is essentially the calm before the storm. Businesses are also slowly beginning to close their doors, and those who have made the decision to stay are making ready for whatever heads their way.
There's kind of a sense of calmness, literally like the calm before the storm. People are talking about it very calmly, but then there are those people that are truly concerned. But most of those people have left.
And Craig says it is reassuring that his area was not under a mandatory evacuation. He says he will continue to send us updates on what's going on in his area as that storm gets closer to landfall. Cierra Johnson, 10 TV News.
Well, Jeff, first responders from Central Ohio were quick to answer the call to help those impacted by Florence. 10 TV's Cierra Johnson in the Digital Broadcast Center tonight with an update from a group of 16 firefighters now stationed in Benson, North Carolina.
Yes, Bryant, Florence has really made her presence known. You can see scenes like this, flooded roads, people getting stuck in roads, people having to wade through water throughout both North and South Carolina. But as you mentioned, that group from right here in Central Ohio is heading toward the devastation. Take a look at these photos. These photos were taken by members of the Upper Scioto Water Rescue Task Force. Now, this group of 16 firefighters from Central Ohio arrived in North Carolina Wednesday. Chief Jay Riley says the group spent the first few days getting a lay of the land in Benson, North Carolina, and running a few practice water rescue drills. He says the practice drills came in handy when the team made their first rescue of a driver who became stranded in high water. Chief Riley says that driver was okay, and he's happy his team from right here in Central Ohio was able to offer their assistance.
We met with the town manager here this morning and went over some of their target hazards and pre-planned the evacuation of a couple trailer parks and low-lying areas. The Emergency Operations Center here has been working really well with us to provide us with information and intelligence to be able to do our jobs really well.
And Chief Jay Riley says right now they're really just taking it a day at a time. He says a nearby river is expected to crest within the next 2 or 3 days, and that will really play into whether or not they stay there to continue offering aid like water rescues or move on to another location. I'm live in the Digital Broadcast Center. Cierra Johnson, 10 TV News.
Well, with all that rain, some events this weekend are getting washed out. 10 TV's Cierra Johnson joins us now from Grandview Heights with more on the activities affected by all this rain. Cierra.
Yeah, Scott, that wet and soggy weather really wreaking havoc around Central Ohio. We're here in Grandview where the annual Ox Fest is underway. It's Ox Roast, rather, is underway. It's an event that's been going on since 1921. You can see the folks have really made their way inside of the tent. On the other side of the tent, there were rides, but they've broken them down. You could see out in the field, it's soggy. There's still those trailers out where those rides once stood, but the rain is not stopping the show here in Grandview. They've made their way inside and the event is going on. And it's the same story across Central Ohio. Several events were impacted by the rain. Events like Old Hilliard Fest and Market Under the Moonlight were canceled because of inclement weather. And others like the Soul Festival at Scioto Mile continued, but guests brought their umbrellas and they wore their raincoats to get out of that gross weather.
But rain or shine, I still think people will show up. SOS Band is not due to come out until 8 p.m. So I'm kind of hopeful more people will come out. My kids probably think I'm crazy.
Let's have a good time.
Yes, let's move on 3. 1, 2, 3.
And folks, back out here in Grandview, the kids seem to really be enjoying the weather. They're soaked, they're cold, but they are still out here supporting their school district. Again, if you were planning to go on an event anywhere around Central Ohio, you may want to double check that that event is still going on. We're here in Grandview where it is wet, soggy, and cold, but still having a good time. Cierra Johnson, 10 TV News.